Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. I just finished up another live stream and had a lot of technical difficulties getting ready for this one back to back really quick. But hi, I'm gonna watch SpaceX unfortunately have to throw away a Block 5 Falcon 9 booster. I'm already so late that they have this up. They got SpaceX radio going, so I'm gonna turn this down and we're gonna listen to this, and I'll have that in the background so I know when it's going to go off. Meanwhile, I'm going to take you guys on over to see what this mission is. The best place for that is to go to everydayastronaut.com, click on pre-launch previews, and then you can click on our mission here. We can see what this is. Today's mission is called Amos-17. Amos might ring a bell because Amos-6 did not even get off the launch pad, unfortunately, and it was one of the scariest things that's happened in SpaceX history. So here we go. This is the pre-launch preview for this. It's taking off tonight. They have moved the clock. It's now, I can also turn on, let me see if this works. Kind of. Wrong size. Watch this. I'll fix it by going like this. This is really dumb. I don't know why it does this, but hold on. You're going to get blasted for a second. Pew, pew. No. Fixed it. I don't know why it does that. Thanks a lot, OBS. It's taking off in 16 minutes here. This is Amos-17, a communication satellite launching with SpaceX. The customer is Spacecom. The rocket is a Falcon 9 Block 5, serial number 1047.3. And, let me make this the other way so you can actually read it with me. That'd be smart. 1047.3. And so the .3 means this is the third launch of it. So it's been gone to space twice. And now it's back, and this will be its final mission, unfortunately. So we're saying goodbye. The launch location, this is Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. So, of course, Slick SLC, the denotion of SLC means Space Launch Complex 40. Those are always at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. If you see ever just LC, that's right next door, literally like a couple kilometers down the road. That's technically Kennedy Space Center. So if you see LC, like LC-39A, that is at Kennedy Space Center, while this launch pad is Slick 40, which is just at nearby Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. The payload mass, this is a big one, 6,500 kilograms. And not only is it a big one, this is also going out to geostationary orbit. So that is why they're having to expend this. And not only are they doing that because this is kind of a payback mission for Amos-6 for the customer, since Amos-6 had a little accident on the pad, kind of leaked out its energy. It beat its pants, if you want to say it. Because of that, they are going to be putting this into an extra high energy orbit and get that bird up and flying and just totally use all of the power of the Falcon 9, all going into orbit, and just skimp on the recovery. So they are not, for that reason, they are not attempting to recover the first stage. Will there be a first stage? Where will the first stage land? The first stage will be expended. It's not being recovered. Will they attempt to recover the fairing? Yes, they are attempting to recover the fairing. This might be the second time they catch a fairing. So that's awesome. So this will be the 74th flight of the Falcon 9 rocket, 10th mission for SpaceX in 2019. So a pretty busy year still. Not as busy as other years, but here's our wonderful graphic by Jeff Barrett. If you want to just kind of see this all laid out, yeah, that's always fun. So here's the spacecraft. Look at how big this thing is. We don't really have much for scale except for this like picker thing here, but this is a big spacecraft, and that's going to be going out to geostationary orbit. That's just so cool. So The biggest concern for today's stream is that weather is definitely might cause us a scrub here today because they are at like very not good weather down there. Yeah. So we'll have to see if this goes off today. Yeah, the other news is I just finished a live stream literally 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago because Rocket Lab just had an announcement that Rocket Lab is working on recovering their first stage. They're actively pursuing it. They are going to be swooping it out of the air with a helicopter. And I think I'm going to do a video, break down how they can do that, while others like SpaceX and can't really do an air recovery or parachutes with the Falcon 9. This would be a good follow-up because I used to have a video online of like, why doesn't SpaceX use parachutes? So I think maybe it'll be why can Rocket Lab use a parachute and SpaceX can't? And we'll get into all that. I think I'm just going to crank that thing out like tonight, try to get it up before I go to Texas. So I might not sleep for the next couple nights. Wish me luck.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, August 6th, and you're looking at a live view of the Falcon 9 rocket as it awaits at 7:23 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, Florida. My name is Kate Tice, and I'm a SpaceX certification engineer here at company headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Welcome to the webcast for the Amos-17 mission, SpaceX's 10th launch of 2019. We'd like to extend a particularly warm welcome to Spacecom CEO David Pollock and the nearly 200 Spacecom guests who have traveled from across the globe to watch today's launch from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. On today's mission, we will be flying Spacecom's Amos-17, a geostationary communications satellite which will provide internet, phone, and secure communications to customers in the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. We're currently at T-minus 12 and a half minutes until liftoff, and currently all systems are go. Let's take a look at that rocket there on the pad. So that's our 70-meter, two-stage liquid-fueled rocket. The bottom two-thirds that you see there is the first stage, which accelerates the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere to the edge of space with the help of 9 Merlin engines. This will be the third and final flight for this booster, which previously flew on the Es'hail-2 mission last November and on Telstar 19V just over a year ago. We will not be recovering the first stage following today's mission. There on the screen you can see quite a bit of white gas floating around, totally normal. That's just the liquid oxygen from inside the vehicle venting and turning into gas as it makes contact with the atmosphere. On top of the first stage is the black carbon fiber interstage, and on top of that is the F9 second stage. And that's what takes the payload to its eventual destination in orbit. The stages separate at about 2.5 minutes into flight. The second stage has a single Merlin vacuum, or as you hear us refer to it, MVAC engine, and that ignites after the first stage separates. The second stage is what will be carrying the Amos-17 satellite to geostationary transfer orbit. The satellite is safely enclosed inside of the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, which you see right there, the pointy cone at the top of the rocket. This protects the payload from aerothermal loads, heating, and contamination during ascent. Once we reach the vacuum of space, we'll jettison the fairing as the second stage continues on its journey to orbit. We will be attempting to recover the fairing halves tonight with our recovery vessel, Ms. Tree, formerly known as Mr. Steven. Our hope is to catch one of the fairing halves in the ship's nets and then recover the other half from the water with our other recovery vessel, Go Navigator. Our catch attempt will occur around T plus 45 minutes into flight, which will be after our webcast concludes, so we'll be providing any additional updates on those catches via our social media accounts. Lastly, the large truss structure that you see there is the transporter erector, or TE. That's what we use to roll the rocket out to the pad from the hangar and then raise it to its vertical launch position as you see there. The TE also routes the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry umbilicals from the ground systems to the rocket and satellites until F9 goes on internal power and clears the pad. At liftoff, that's what will retract in order to clear the way for F9's ascent.
Good afternoon. I'm John Innsbrucker, the Falcon Principal Integration Engineer at SpaceX, and we're just inside 10 minutes before launch. Good news is we're working no issues on Falcon 9, but we are closely watching the weather. Falcon 9 rolled out to the pad with the Amos-17 satellite at T-minus 16 hours and went vertical about 12 hours ago. Now the chief engineer held a technical poll at T-minus 1 hour, and then the launch director held both the propellant load and launch go, no-go polls at T-minus 38 minutes. Now the go, no-go poll covers the 10 people who are counting down the Falcon. They electronically click on go in their online procedure. Now for Falcon 9, we've been loading propellant since T-minus 35 minutes. Falcon 9 uses rocket-grade kerosene, which we call RP1, for its fuel, and liquid oxygen, or LOX, is the oxidizer. It's that cold LOX that's causing the condensation clouds that you see around the first and second stages. Now with fuel and oxidizer on hand, we do need an ignition source to complete the fire triangle. Now for Falcon 9, this is T-tub liquid, which is our igniter. You might see this at T-minus 0 as a green glow right before the engines light and the rocket takes off. Now currently fuel is completely loaded on the second stage. Fuel is scheduled to finish up on the first stage at about T-minus 6 minutes before launch. And meanwhile, liquid oxygen load is continuing on both first and second stages. Now, in addition to the RP-1 fuel and the liquid oxygen, Falcon 9 also uses helium to keep the tanks pressurized in flight. This helps fill the empty volume created as we deplete propellant out of the stages. Helium load began before the webcast went live. We're topping off until about the last minute and a half before launch. Now, engine chill will begin at T-minus 7 minutes. They're getting the team ready in a minute to open up the pre-valves between the first stage propellant tanks and the 9 Merlin engines. This will allow a little bit of cold liquid oxygen to flow into the turbo pumps, bringing them down to a temperature close to that of the super chilled propellant that will soon be flowing through the engines at liftoff. So the Falcon 9's looking good. On the satellite side, the Spacecom team transferred Amos-17 to internal power starting at T-minus 30 minutes. They completed that at T-minus 15 minutes. They're ready for launch. They're just monitoring telemetry on the spacecraft. The range tells us that they are green, air and sea space are cleared. And the big one is the weather. We had to delay half an hour this evening for launch. Currently the weather rules are all green, but we're watching everything as we go through the last 7 minutes of the countdown. So right now, all systems continue to be go for liftoff at 23 minutes after the hour.
As we mentioned earlier, tonight's mission is for Spacecom, a satellite operator headquartered in Israel. Today we're launching Amos-17. Amos stands for African Mediterranean Orbital Satellite, and the 17 is for 17 degrees east longitude location of the satellite. Built by Boeing, it'll be the most advanced high-throughput satellite providing communication services to Africa and have a life expectancy of over 20 years. Let's get some more details on our customer payload tonight.
Now, I want to point out a few fun things while this runs here. So number one, let's pay close attention, because there's actually a really rare moment in space right now where there's actually two vehicles on two separate launch pads really, really close to each other. There's actually an Atlas V sitting there literally only about 2 kilometers away or something. It's really, really close. So if we see it in the right camera angles, there's a chance we might see it over there. It's on Slick 41. Is that correct? Yeah, and so I'm going to keep my eyes glued for that because I just think that's so cool. So awesome that we're at a period again where we have 2 launch pads with 2 rockets on it. I hope someone has some awesome shots of that. Yeah, I think that's so cool. The other thing to mention is people are wanting my report on pointy end up, flamey end down. Luckily, I do have a lot of experience with the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy vehicles. I can confirm based on the information given to me and the data of my visualization tools known as my eyeballs, but I'm a very trained professional on vehicle orientation. I can announce that the pointy end is up and the flamey end is down. You can all take a deep breath. We did it. We did it, Internet. We did it. But yeah, we have a ton of comments from you guys that I want to get to here, including Chris Harris, who said it was fun to see me because it's been a minute because we literally just finished a live stream. Eric, thank you very much, Eric. That means a lot. I love what I do. S. Daddy has a really interesting question, which I have no idea. Do I think a 50-pound rabbit's a big rabbit? Yes. I think that's huge.
Into the final stages of the countdown. First and second stages are both nearly fully loaded with over 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. Stage 1 actually finished loading just a moment ago, and we have also begun chilling of the 9 Merlin engines. We're also getting ready now for the completion of liquid oxygen loading on both stage 1. That'll happen at about T-minus 3 minutes. Second stage will close out at about T-minus 2 minutes. The view on the screen is Falcon 9. The strong back part of the transporter erector still around the vehicle. We're getting ready to open up the clamp arms that attach to the second stage. Once the arms are open, coming open right now, you can see them, we will then begin retracting the strong back. That'll be coming up in about 10 seconds. The strong back will recline about 2 degrees away from the Falcon 9.
Yeah, it does not retract very much on this new launch strong back.
Beginning motion of the strong back. Now we're using hydraulic struts to pull it back, and at liftoff, those hydraulic struts will pull it farther away as the rocket lifts off to clear the strong back. Another event coming up at T-minus 60 seconds is the call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. There are 3 flight computers on the second stage that constantly compare commands and calculations with each other. That way, if any one computer develops a fault, the other 2 can safely continue the flight. So Falcon 9's looking good. The Amos-17 payload, the Spacecom team, everything continues to be good for them. Currently, the range is tracking no issues. Everything is clear for launch, and the weather continues to cooperate, but we've still got a few minutes to go. So as we've passed just inside T-minus 3 minutes, let's listen in to the countdown nets for the terminal count of Falcon 9 with Amos-17.
All right, guys, only 2 minutes. Again, I want a friendly reminder.
LDCE, this is RC on countdown 1. Be advised, the range has got no-go at this time. Continue with the count. We'll execute a range hold at T-minus 30 seconds if the range does not clear the issue.
At 2.5 minutes, they just had a weather call, so it's currently not go, but because the vehicle's fully loaded and fully ready, at T-minus 30 seconds, they'll do one more time, and if it's still no go, they will have to cancel.
No, it got stuck.
What? So this may be a scrub for the night. Scrubs are no fun, but scrubs are cheaper than booms or going through a thunderhead cloud and snapping in half because of sheer wind forces and things like that.
Stage 2 locks close up.
So they're still going for it. But now Kate mentioned how liquid oxygen is flowing out of, especially on that black interstate, you can see liquid oxygen pouring out as it becomes gaseous oxygen and vented. But you can also see just condensation coming in contact with that, right below that, all the way down to like the gray area. That's just literally ice, and it's so cold because of liquid oxygen that as water vapor comes in contact with it, it condensates. Just like, you know, when you open your fridge sometimes or freezer on like really cold days, you'll see condensation pour off of it.
Gas closeouts.
Same thing here, and I just think that's super cool. And there's the gas closeouts. So it's officially topped off and fully pressurized. And
LDCE, this is RC on countdown. Be advised, we're continuing with the count. The range is go at this time.
arrangement went back to go. That's amazing. Okay. They're going for it. Now, we talked again a little bit in the beginning about why this is expendable. They're giving it the full beams. It's a pretty heavy payload, 6,500 kilograms. That's at the upper limit of what the Falcon 9 can do. And I think they're also putting it into a higher energy orbit than a normal geostationary transfer orbit. So there's just no margin for them to be able to land it. And this
LD is go for launch.
Sweet. They're going for it. That's crazy that within a 2-minute window, it went from no-go to go. So many
T-minus 30 seconds.
constraints that they have to go around. A lot of it could be, you know, lightning within 10 miles. You have to have like a 10-mile, 10-minute rule or something like that. There can't be lightning within the past like 10 minutes or something.
Stage 1, pressing for flight.
There's something like that within a certain parameter.
T-minus 15 seconds.
All right, guys, here we go. We're down to 10 seconds.
10,
Here
9,
we go.
8, 7,
They're going for
6,
it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
You might not see much as it gets into the clouds here, but they're doing it.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Good shot so far. So weird to see without landing legs though, and no grid fins.
AVI power and telemetry nominal.
It's getting pretty. These tracking cameras, it's so amazing. They can
Vehicle is
see from far away.
supersonic.
Coming up on 1 minute into flight, we're getting ready for maximum dynamic pressure.
Vehicle has reached maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Here we go.
You've heard the call out. We're through the region of maximum aerodynamic pressure. Vehicle going supersonic as we leave the denser parts of the lower Earth's atmosphere. Falcon 9 trajectory looks good. All 9 Merlin engines are at power. Everything looking good for Falcon 9. We're heading due east from Cape Canaveral, headed to the first of 2 orbits planned for today.
Notice the engine plume getting wider and wider.
Nice view from the onboard camera, looking back at the plume slowly expanding as we leave the atmosphere. The plume will get larger as we get out to the vacuum of space.
And that's why aerospace.
Now today, first stage shutdown is planned for about T plus 2 minutes, 45 seconds. We won't be recovering the first stage today, so that leaves more
And back
propellant to
into
burn to achieve the required orbit for the satellite. If you compare that to last week's CRS-18 resupply flight to the space station, on that mission the first stage shut down almost half a minute sooner than today. We needed to reserve enough propellant to be able to turn the first stage and return it all the way back to the launch site. Now coming up quickly in 20 seconds, a sequence of events: main engine cutoff, the 9 main engines shut down, stage separation, and then ignition of the second stage engine coming up in just under 15 seconds.
Wow, over 8,000 kilometers an hour. That's a fast MECO. 8,500, 9,000 still. 9,500
MECO.
kilometers. 9,500 kilometers an hour.
AVI stage separation confirmed.
That's fast. Goodbye, Booster. You're so nice and pretty.
We've had successful ignition of the second stage engine. The Merlin Vacuum D engine is up at power. Turbine speed
Stage 1
looks
FTS
good.
is saved.
You can see the nozzle beginning to glow red, a tradition
Stage
for
2
the
on
upper
nominal
stage.
trajectory.
First stage has completed its mission. It's falling back to Earth. As we said, we won't recover it. Coming up next, fairing separation out in the vacuum of space.
I'll be telling you guys a little trick about this this nozzle, this vacuum nozzle, when I do my video about aerospace. We're going to talk all about sea level
AVI fairing
nozzles
separation confirmed.
and vacuum nozzles on my video.
The position of signal will be
This nozzle does something very interesting.
Nice view in the late afternoon. Sun shining on the payload fairing. The second stage has separated the payload fairing around the Amos-17 spacecraft as we're now in the vacuum of space. Right now, Merlin vacuum engine continues to be on power. Trajectory looks good. Stage 2 is right in the middle of the predicted path. Avionics reports their systems are nominal. So coming up, 4 minutes and 15 seconds mark, we are go on Falcon 9 carrying Amos-17 to the parking orbit, the first of 2 orbits for today.
Well, don't forget they are attempting to recover one of the fairing halves again with Miss Tree. So good luck with that, because it was even, potentially a faster upper stage speed, and they might be further down range and all that stuff. Hopefully Miss Tree can catch it. That'd be awesome. It might be another almost nighttime by the time, it's pretty far down range. I don't know exactly how far down range Miss Tree is for this mission, but it might already be nighttime by the time the fairing gets there. So yeah, so crazy.
So just past the T plus 5 minute mark into today's mission for Amos-17. In case if you've just joined us, we had a slight delay due to weather over at Florida launch site, but we did take off at 23 minutes after the hour. And as you can see on your screen, the stages have separated, and there we have a beautiful shot of planet Earth as the second stage nozzle is glowing gorgeous red, orange, as it's carrying Amos-17 to geostationary transfer orbit.
Stage 2 on nominal trajectory.
We have confirmation that the trajectory for stage 2 is nominal.
Looking good. Nice. Corona saw it from the beach in Daytona.
Just after the second stage ignited, you may have noticed a couple of pieces coming off from the nozzle. If you've tuned into our launches before, you see that every time. Those are that's basically just a stiffening ring that we place at the end of the nozzle to give it a little bit of structural integrity for transportation purposes while the rocket is still on the ground. Not really necessary once the rocket has taken off and they fall away.
It's crazy. beautiful beast. The more I learn about this stuff, the more I
The
appreciate.
next major event that we
all these
are
things.
approaching at about the 8-minute and 9-second mark will be the first of 2 second engine cutoffs, or SECO 1. At this point in the mission, the second stage is pulling about
Expected losses of
3.5
1
Gs.
confirmed.
You yourself may have experienced that. If you've ever been on a big roller coaster, equivalent to that, the space shuttle encountered about 3.5 Gs whenever it was taking off and re-entering.
Terminal guidance.
So we're less than 30 seconds away from second engine cutoff 1. Like I said before, this is Amos-17, which will provide internet, phone, and secure communications to customers in the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. We're sending it to
Stage 2 STS is
geostationary
saved.
transfer orbit.
Navigator shut down.
And we have confirmation that second engine cutoff has occurred and that we are in good orbit. So we're about to enter an 18-minute coast phase, so we're going to take a break, but we'll leave you with an animation that shows where we are in the coast phase. We'll be back at the T+26-minute mark for a second stage
Nominal
relay.
orbit insertion.
Okay, cool. They're going into their coast here. So this is where we will do some talking here and do some explaining, answer some questions. Number one, just to remind you, the first stage was expended intentionally. This was the third flight of this booster, 1047. We hardly knew you. They basically were going for maximum performance for this. There's no margin with this heavy of a payload going to a geostationary orbit to be able to even attempt a recovery, because recovery does require fuel, requires delta V, that you can only use that delta V for one thing. It's not like you can use that amount of delta V, that power, for anything else. So either you can think of it this way. This is the way I like to think about this as far as recovery calculations goes. Imagine you have your second stage. So you have a little baby rocket with a payload on it, right? And you can see how heavy that payload is and where it's trying to go, and then see how much work that second stage can do. Because that second stage is the same for every mission, no matter what, right? And so if that second stage can produce, we'll say, 5,000 kilometers per second of delta V, just totally making up a number. And that would be, well, let's make up a smaller number. Well, let's say, okay, 5,000 kilometers per second that upper stage can do. That means we have, and maybe the first stage has 3,000 kilometers, and we only need 7.5 kilometers. That means there's 500 kilometers per second or something. I'm making up a bunch of numbers for the first stage to be able to reuse some of that delta V to be able to recover it. And if there's even more, say the upper stage can produce 5,500 kilometers per second of delta V, 5,500 meters per second of delta V. The first stage might have enough delta V left over to be able to actually go back to land and return to the launch site, which is a lot easier, a lot cheaper. You don't have to take a crew out to the middle of the ocean, recover a booster, ship it back. So it's cheaper to do that. So if you have the payload margin, the performance margin of the Falcon 9, because again, they aren't making different Falcon 9s for different missions. They're basically just saying, what is this Falcon 9 capable of doing? So if it's a lighter payload going especially to the low Earth orbit, like a CRS mission, no problem. They have plenty of fuel and plenty of delta V margin to be able to return it back to the launch pad or launch site and land it back on land. If it's something like a normal geostationary mission, normally because the booster is going so far down range, it doesn't have enough delta V to turn around and make it back. So they do a downrange landing. And in cases like this, when it's really heavy, they don't have the margin to be able to do any recovery. And you might ask, why not Falcon Heavy? The customer didn't buy a Falcon Heavy. it's probably cheaper to use. I'm sure there's just numbers. There's some kind of threshold there where it's still cheaper to use a Falcon 9, et cetera, et cetera. And also the customer, I don't know what this has to do with Amos-6 and the loss of that payload. You know, maybe it's just cheaper for SpaceX to even just do a regular old Falcon 9. It's been used 3 times now. Just give it a little Viking funeral and say goodbye. So that's that, just to kind of help clarify that. Okay, let's get to some of your... I also want to say really quick, guys, I will be going, all of you wondering right now, I will be going to Boca Chica again on by Monday. I'll probably be heading down already on Friday to get my butt down there. I'm going to try to get out a video really quick before then, while I continue to work on my Aerospike engine video, which is 11 pages long. So plan on me going there to see Starhopper, the 200-meter hop. I owe the biggest thank you to my Patreon supporters. You people are the reason I'm able to get down and do all that stuff that I'm able to do. So if you guys want to help me do what I do, if you want to join our exclusive Discord channel, our exclusive subreddit, please go to patreon.com/everydayastronaut, where you can help fund what I do here. A lot of what I do is a lot of research, is most of my time spent. But the other big portion of what I do is, like going down to Texas is not free. Even with free supercharging, it's still not free. Hotels and all that stuff all add up. And just time spent not scripting, not researching, not getting other videos out. It sucks for me. Trust me, I want nothing more than to sit. And my favorite days right now, my idea of a day off is actually sitting around scripting and learning about Aerospike engines at this current moment. And that process has led to probably 5 phone calls with different experts that take me 2 or 3 hours each time. When I have someone's ear, I'm going to ask them every question and grasp as much as I can, because that's kind of my job, is to try to be curious about all this stuff and ask all those questions that you guys ask all the time. And I want to be able to come to it from all these angles. So like this Aerospike video is turning slowly into a Raptor engine video where it's insanely long, a ton of hard work, but I think it'll totally be worth it because I've learned so much in the process of learning about Aerospikes that I think you guys will hopefully learn a bunch too, and I hope that it's worth it for you guys. I think it will be. So if you want to help what I do, go to patreon.com/everydayastronaut, or there's also our web store, everydayastronaut.com/shop. And this stuff we do limited runs on things. This shirt, it didn't sell as well as I thought, probably because there's a bunch of Apollo 11 things. But we're about half out of this one already. So if you want a chance to get this cool shirt, these are doing sew-on patches now. So they're like super, super cool. They're extra cool. They have custom tags that don't show up in these renders. But this is the Apollo Command Module hatch with the moon inside the window. I think it's awesome. Get it before it sells out. We also have our brand new pointy end up, flamey end down shirts, which I think are super awesome. I'm so stoked. I'm getting mine in the mail on Thursday finally. This is coming back in stock. We have shipped. If you ordered this shirt, the full flow stage combustion cycle shirt, thank you. We got way more slammed than we ever thought, and these custom tags took an extra second to get going. So they have all shipped out this week. You should have them in your hands either this week or next week already. So if you ordered this shirt, thank you. As soon as those are in customers' hands, we've already done a new run of these shirts again. So if you better stay paying attention here, because this shirt will be in the store relatively soon again. I'll let you guys know when it is. But then we're selling out of these quickly. These are getting restocked here, I think, this week as well. But these are the all-over blueprint shirts. I love these. This is like my favorite shirt in the world. So yeah, so go ahead and grab that. And we're also getting Gridfin Nautic coasters are coming back in stock. But in general, yeah, the shop's awesome. So if you want to support what I do and help me make it down to Texas and do all of those other things, consider going to everydayastronaut.com and click on the shop button, or just everydayastronaut.com/shop. And again, thank you guys so much for all your support on Patreon and just by shopping and by subscribing, hanging out, encouraging me, even following me on Twitter and like interacting with me. That's a lot of fun for me, and I just really enjoy the community we've developed, and especially our Discord channel is so awesome. So yeah, you guys are awesome. So yeah, that's my plug there. Let's get to some of your guys' questions. Okay, so really quick, I need to laugh again at Esh Daddy asking if I think a 50-pound rabbit's a big rabbit. Yes, that's huge. That's like 22 kilograms or something. That's a huge freaking rabbit. What are you talking about? How is that even a question? What? Leah, you're welcome, Leah. Eric, love your streams and videos. Thank you very much, Eric. Chris C, thank you. Jack T Rex, Hey, Tim, is it okay if I put a link on your website on one I'm making? Of course. You can put a link to my website anywhere. I don't have authority to tell you you can't link to my website somewhere. It's a community-based site to keep people updated on exploration of space. That's awesome, Jack T-Rex. Good luck with that. Thank you for your support, of course. Absolutely. Let's see here. Starscream 19120 meatball or worm logo? Depends. It just depends. To me, the meatball logo, of course, just is so nostalgic. They're talking about the NASA meatball logo. Is so nostalgic of the Apollo era stuff. And I still like, there's some aesthetic about the worm logo to me, the scribbly logo, that it's kind of like my everyday astronaut hat. That makes me feel, that to me is like a cooler brand in the sense of like a purely brand, like a Nike, you know, as a brand thing. The worm logo I like better. But as like actual cool factor, nostalgia, and an importance factor, I think the meatball logo is significantly more substantial in that merit. So I don't know if that makes sense, but good question. Just Snoke. Hey Tim, do you think the SpaceX can make the Falcon 9 use methane instead of old fossil fuel kerosene? What do you think the pros and cons are? I have two things for you. Number one, I did a long discussion with this with my friends at Tomorrow. So there's a YouTube channel and a podcast called Tomorrow, but it's spelled TMRO. Tomorrow. Look in the community tab or look on YouTube or on Twitter. I talked about it. I had an awesome hour-long discussion all about Starship and answering this exact question of why SpaceX doesn't put methane on the Falcon 9 instead of fossil fuel. The biggest reason is like this. Say you have, no offense to anyone that owns a 1992 Honda Civic SI hatchback. At some point, you've decked it out enough, and you're like, if I put one more dollar in this thing, like literally any dollar that I put, I already turbocharged the B16, even though it's an open deck, and that's just a crazy thing to do. I stripped out the interior. I put a crazy sound system. I lowered it. I did all these things. If I do one more thing to this car, like it's so beyond not worth it, because I could have saved, if I spend 12 grand on this car again, I could have just went up and got a nicer car, like a lot faster car that's nicer, that has more creature comforts and GPS and automatic this and that. All of the things that the car doesn't have. That's basically why you don't want to stop putting money or development or any effort into the Falcon 9. It's working. It's kicking butt. It's commercially dominant already. Don't put another dime on that vehicle. Start applying that technology straight into your next vehicle. It's almost sunk cost fallacy in a sense of stop trying to do it. Yes, there's probably some crossover, but I'm sure they've analyzed that and they're like, no more money on Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy. We're going all in on Starship. This is very much a Falcon 1 to Falcon 9 moment where, yes, they could have kept doing the Falcon 1. They could have extended the tanks. There was supposed to be a Falcon 1E. They were supposed to do, a Falcon 5. They scrapped all of that in full pursuit of Falcon 9. And look at where the Falcon 9 is today. They went headfirst into that. So don't even bother, don't even look at, don't even consider, don't even think about trying to change an entire system around a really skinny rocket that's already maxed out to the T and try to make it use anything like methane and the Raptor engine. The Raptor engine would be a great upper stage for a larger vehicle. If you have the Raptor engine's twice as powerful as a Merlin, the Merlin 1D vacuum or the Merlin vac is already the most powerful upper stage ever. It's overpowered and it has to deep throttle to just maintain a safe acceleration speed. If you put a Raptor engine which can't throttle as deep as a Merlin engine, and as it's twice as powerful, yes, you could maybe get more delta V out of it, but it'd end up creating 6, 7, 8 Gs and crushing your payload. So there's just no legit reason to pursue methane on the Falcon 9 vehicle. That vehicle is done. It's awesome. It's kicking super butt. Now it's time to see Starship and Starhopper. Oh, Starship. Starhopper only has one more flight apparently, and I'm going to go see it. But that is really honestly an awesome question. I'm glad you asked. And if you want to hear my long rant, go on ahead and check out Tomorrow. Or we talked about it once on an episode of Our Ludicrous Future. So that's the other thing. If you guys want more space content, you need me to talk to your face more often. I don't know why you need me to talk at your face more often. I do a weekly podcast with 2 other YouTubers called Our Ludicrous Future. Please subscribe to that right now if you're not subscribed already. it's a lot of fun. I talk about rockets every week and update you with rocket news. Other guys talk about Tesla and electric vehicles and futurism. Ben Solons from Teslanomics and Joe Scott from Answers with Joe. I just have such a good time talking with those guys every week. It's one of my highlights every week. If you need like an overview of what's new this week in the terms of like renewable energy, EVs, rockets, and just futurism in general, talking AI, things like that, please subscribe to Our Ludicrous Future. It's a ton of fun. And I talk about a lot of things like that. And I love it. I love it. So yeah. There we go. So thank you. Luden, whoosh. Thank you very much, Ludendorff. Sean, thank you twice. Miles Miller, is the vacuum nozzle actually vibrating or is that camera artifact? Miles, I don't think... I was debating that myself too, actually, on this launch. It might be a little bit of both. There's a good chance the nozzle would wobble a little bit. It's that thing is so big. It's like 3 meters wide. And it wouldn't fit in like my room or anything. Like it's huge. It's unbelievably big. When you see one in real life, like when you go to SpaceX headquarters and you look up and you see the MVAC nozzle, it's huge. It's hard to explain how big it is. So there's a chance that it flexes a little bit and wiggles and wobbles. But I think a lot of it also is just the vibrating the camera and that rolling shutter effect and artifacts thereof. I'm not positive. So yeah. Good question. Ryan 1047.3. She sure was a good ship. She really was. 3 flawless first, boosts there into orbit. So, and Corona, we talked about you really quick. Just saw it from the beach in Daytona. That's so awesome. Thanks for saying hi. Bob the Builder, would it be possible for them to use some sort of tether to pull the 2 fairing halves together after separation so they can catch them both? Love your work. Bob the Builder, that's not a stupid question. I absolutely understand what you're saying. You're basically saying, like, go like this, let the center core go through it, and slide them right back together. I'm sure it's just one of those, like, that might be more complicated than it's worth, and that's actually not a terrible idea. I don't know. Maybe they'll look into something like that. Maybe the problem is, honestly, a fairing is quite heavy. Your boat's already quite big, but honestly, closing up that fairing would make it more predictable aerodynamically, I think. That's interesting. Could they do it? They probably could. And would it be possible? It might be physically possible. Will they do something like that? Will they continue to pursue that type of thing while they're so actively working on Starship? I'm not sure. But I like that question. SPFLSU. Hey, Tim, do you think it's going to be... Do you think this is going to be the last naked Falcon 9, or are there GPS missions still expending the booster? Good question. I don't actually know the manifest if there's too many more expendables. I don't think this will be the last expended booster. I think we'll still see expended boosters in the future. There's probably that threshold. There's a convergent point where it's cheaper to expend a booster, especially after it's done, 3, 4, 5 missions, get its, pay itself back, get its reuse out of it. Expend it than it is to try to do even a single Falcon Heavy mission. Because flying a small, a geostationary payload like this to, using a Falcon Heavy might just be totally overkill. I don't know. I'm sure there's some divergent point. That's the thing about rocket science, is there's so many points on so many different graphs, and so many times these converging points that it's just like right there. This is where we're at, and this is what we need to do. And that changes with there's so many variables. So many variables, including cost, including all of these things that go in, payload performance, payload destination, blah, 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 blah. And that might just be one of those diverging points where it's like, it's still just easier to expend this booster. So I don't think it'll be our last one. John Rumpf, thanks for streaming the launch tonight. Hey, John, thank you very much. If everyone could really quickly in the chat, just say a quick thanks to John. He helps out a ton on the website. He writes up the pre-launch preview, so you may be familiar with his name. He's just been a huge supporter. So thank you, John. We're going back live here, so let's watch Seco.
Getting ready to reignite the MVAC-D engine you can see on your monitor. This is going to be for our second and final burn. Currently, we are chilling in the turbo pump. We're also firing settling thrusters, small nitrogen-powered thrusters, making sure that the fuel and the liquid oxygen are at the bottom of the tank in the zero-G environment. As you can see from the map, we're coming over equatorial Africa. This is the best place to do the burn to change the orbit. So burn's coming up, let's listen in.
And back ignition.
I love that.
We've got good ignition. Chamber pressure is on target. Now this burn is going to last about 1 minute. As you can see from the velocity counter, we're going to add about 2.6 kilometers per second. That's how much velocity we need to put into the orbit to get from the low Earth parking orbit we started from into the final geostationary transfer orbit required by the Spacecom customer. We're beginning to throttle down the second stage engine to keep G-loads on the spacecraft underneath the required levels. Getting ready for shutdown of the second stage engine.
So crazy. We'll talk about those lines in the nozzle on my video about. Oh, it's definitely wobbling. Look at that.
We've got a good shutdown. Waiting for the orbit call out now.
Nominal orbit insertion.
Good.
And the guidance officer over the countdown net has called out a nominal orbit insertion. Looking at the plots, it's a really good looking orbit for the Falcon 9, still carrying the Amos-17 spacecraft on top. So now that we're in a good orbit, we're going to be coasting for the next 4.5 minutes or so. So we're going to stop live commentary, but we'll be back at T plus 31 minutes, 30 seconds for the final event, the deployment of the Amos-17 satellite.
So they might not be trying to live stream the fairing attempt recovery. I don't know for sure, for positive, if they are attempting to recover the fairing. Yeah, we'll have to see here. Maybe it was. Okay, so now we have about 4 more minutes before they deploy the satellite. They're in a good orbit, so just deploy it, and their mission is over, and that'll be successful. All right, so again, thanks, John. You're awesome, and welcome back. Andrew, shout out to the first tardigrades on the moon delivered by SpaceX. You're right. That was a little bit of a whoops. And Space IL. Well, I'll be talking about that actually this week on Our Ludicrous Future. So that's definitely one of those topics we're going to be talking about. So if you want me to talk all about why there's now tardigrades on the moon, which is a life form, we will be talking about that and discussing that on our podcast, Our Ludicrous Future. So yeah, definitely subscribe. Click subscribe right now. I'm curious if you guys ever listen to me when I say that. I'd love to see the numbers of that channel grow because I have a ton of fun on that channel. So let's see some increased numbers. So Kumquat Lord, don't forget you can dynamically link YouTube membership to Discord. It's true, Kumquat Lord, but the problem is the dynamic linking only works on like the whole thing. They don't have it integrated yet to tiers. So I want it to be able to line up with our Patreon Discord members and our Patreon tiers. There's not a way to enable it so that it matches with our Patreon Discord tiers. And I've talked to YouTube about it. They're working on it, and as soon as it's ready, I will immediately get that going. So don't you worry. Narisco, hey Tim, was wondering with everything going on with Starhopper and Elon doing the Starship presentation soon, would now be a good time to have everyone ask him to do an interview with you? Yes. How about when maybe the night that they do the hop, once it lands, and if everything goes well and they're still planning on the presentation, if there's a good point, I will release the demons, and let's see if we can make it happen. Something tells me that I think there is an actual possibility of this happening soon. So of that potentially happening. So yes, let's see if he agrees to it. Roth, thank you for the new membership. You're awesome. And let's see here. Oh, we're back already.
55 seconds since liftoff. We're back a little bit early. We've got a view here from the 2 cameras that SpaceX manufactures and installs on the back end of the second stage, looking at the MVAC-D nozzle from both sides. Now currently we are halfway across Africa between Gabon and the Heart of Beanstalk ground stations. That's where we're getting ready to get telemetry of payload deploy. That should be coming up in about 40 seconds from now. Now currently the second stage flight computer will send a command to the separation band that clamps Amos-17 to the Falcon 9. the band opens and small springs between the spacecraft and the second stage will open, gently pushing the satellite away from the second stage. Good view of the Amos-17 satellite from the camera atop the second stage.
Here we go.
Waiting for payload separation event.
There we go.
AVI confirm spacecraft separation.
Yes. Excellent. They're done.
Always
over.
great to see the spacecraft floating away from the Falcon 9 second stage. So we've got a good deployment on time. We're in the desired orbit. And with that, we're going to bring our webcast to a close. But it's been a great webcast for the Falcon 9 team.
No
We
mystery.
had a liftoff delayed 30 minutes by bad weather at the Cape. But just before we went on the air, the last of the weather rules went from red to green. The range was ready to support. We counted down and launched at 23 minutes after the hour. First stage did its job before separating. There is no recovery plan for the first stage today. It will re-enter and break up in the atmosphere. Second stage continued on with 2 great burns, first into parking orbit and then into the final orbit.
Expected losses.
Just now we saw the separation of the Amos-17 spacecraft in the desired geostationary transfer orbit. So again, a great day for Falcon 9 and the Amos-17 customer.
Thank you to our customer Spacecom, and also to the 45th Space Wing for range safety and the FAA for licensing today's launch. We'd also like to thank all of our viewers for tuning in. Follow our website and social media platforms for updates on the catch for the fairing halves, as well as our next missions and milestones. Until next time, have a great night.
All right. Well, don't you go anywhere. We've got some more stuff to talk about here, guys. I did see a good question, and this does get, I want to make sure that I'm not pandering to any conspiracy theories, but it is still a good question that I want you guys as viewers to be empowered with. I'm a former photographer. I still am a professional photographer. You can't hire me. Sorry, I only shoot for myself. But I still love the question of why can't you see stars in space? You know, once these vehicles get out into space, where's the stars? Well, don't forget, first off, it's not like you got closer to the stars by any remotely measurable distance. So it's not like you're now, oh, look at, we're right next, stars are billions and trillions of miles apart and we just went up 200 kilometers. It's not, you're not closer. So forget that. The other one is, yes, there's no sky illuminated because of the lack of atmosphere, but it's still daylight. So the sun, our sun is still sitting there screaming at these spacecrafts and the camera is exposed to daylight. The camera's still like at the same setting in space, like brightness wise, as it would be here on Earth. It's not like, just because it's just the same reason you can't see stars during the day on Earth. It's the same exact reason. It's not like at night, because there's an atmosphere, you can't see stars on Earth. We can see stars on Earth through the atmosphere. It's just that it's night and our eyes adjust to it. There's not a crazy bright sun overpowering that. Our cameras can then take pictures of it because it's not overexposed. So it's not like the limiting factor on whether or not you see stars or not, it has nothing to do with the atmosphere. The limiting factor has to do with whether or not you're exposing your photograph and the settings on the camera to be, exposed to daylight or exposed to nighttime. A longer shutter speed, a higher f-star, a larger f-stop, a larger aperture, and a higher ISO are necessary to be able to expose to those really dimly lit stars. Now the thing is that, obviously you remove the beautiful blue sky because it turns black, and that does change. And also you could expose to the stars a lot easier at daytime if you weren't trying to expose to, say, a spacecraft illuminated by the sun. So because we're trying to take pictures of the spacecraft and get video of the spacecraft in space, you don't just want that to be white and crazy bright and in order to get the stars. You're not trying to get pictures of stars. We have those already. That's the whole, that's, to me, that's kind of fun. That's the same thing on the moon. When people ask, why couldn't you see stars on the moon? It's daytime and you're exposing your photograph to daylight. Period. That's all there is. I just think that's kind of fun. Okay, so Narisco, maybe this is the time to get on that with Elon is the answer. Roth, thank you very much for the membership. And Sasquatch, there should be 4 classes of Starship Colonial Transport: Vanguard, First Arrival, Cargo, and Fuel and Tanker. Dang. That'd be awesome. I would love if there was different classes of Starship. But there's definitely going to be probably tankers and cargo. Yeah. That's cool. Vanguard, cargo, and fuel, and tanker. That'd be sweet. I love it. I'm with you there. David, dang. Thank you, David. Cheers, get some breakfast tomorrow. Thank you so much, David. That is very, very generous. Everyone say a quick thank you and cheers to David. That is thank you. That will go straight into my hotel costs when I am going down to Boca Chica. So thank you very much, David. Sasquist also says they should be able to get 10 boosters and 25 starships out of the 500 Raptor engines. That sounds about right. Yeah. That's crazy. So that's not that many engines, honestly, in the grand scheme of things. Like, in the grand scheme of things, if you're mass producing stuff, if you're mass producing engines, no, not a big deal, you know. John Murphy, the Merlin, hold on, where was that? John Murphy. The Merlin vacuum engine is almost as wide as the outer diameter of the rocket itself. Compare that to the 9 Merlins on the first stage. Exactly. We're going to do that exact comparison in this video that I'm working on about aerospikes, talking about how physically huge the bell nozzle gets and how that's all just in order to try to make gas that's going in every direction, try to go in just one direction. And again, there's always a threshold, you know, where it's like you can make it bigger and it might be a little bit more efficient, but now you're adding more weight and more volume and more weight to your first stage, your inner stage, all that stuff. So it's fun. It's a really fun topic. And thank you for that, John. Chris Harris, Tim, could I look, Tim, I could look, but it is retired as of .4. No, I'm pretty sure this was just the 3rd flight of this booster, so it was retired as .3. Glenn Verdich, would there be extra issues with range as Mist Tree is in Falcon 9's trajectory, or is the second stage burn before fairing separation enough to distance them? That little bit of velocity, like the fact that the second stage burns. So basically what they're saying is the first stage, you know, let's go, and that's going to fall. And you don't want that to fall on Mist Tree, right? But even then, the second stage lighting up and burning for literally like 5-10 seconds of burning like that will put the vehicle 100 kilometers downrange. Like something crazy, significantly further downrange is where that will fall. So just by burning 10, 15, 20 seconds and then deploying the fairings, they are, just by physics, because of where they fall, will be hundreds of kilometers apart from each other. So the Falcon 9, we could probably look that up. I'm sure it's trackable somewhere. You can find the exact plot of the exclusion zone of where the Falcon 9 booster will re-enter and where the fairing will, and where Mist Tree is expecting to try to catch the fairing. And I'm sure they're several hundred kilometers apart. But that's a good question. Paul Norwood, any idea what the large structure is in Florida where the Mark II is? So, yes, to provide context, don't forget they're building 2 orbital Starship prototypes as we speak. One in Florida, one in Boca Chica, Texas. Both of them are expected, they're racing to try to get to orbit first. The one in Florida is building some kind of, assembly room. And right now it's confusing because it doesn't look like there are doors on it, but I'm sure there will be. Like, you don't build a building that tall. That's like the perfect height to put, to integrate a booster and stuff, or not a booster, but like to build a Starship vehicle and do some stuff without, like, it wouldn't be that tall if they weren't planning to build that stuff inside there. That's just kind of, I think, pretty basic. So I'm pretty sure it's just simply a building, and they'll probably add doors to it or something like that. Who knows? Maybe they'll just take, right now it's got like walls on that side that's facing where they're building currently. Maybe they'll build on the other side of the building. Maybe they'll take those walls down once it's finished being constructed and add doors. Who knows? But it's probably just some kind of vehicle assembly building. Eric, if SpaceX asked you to go to Mars, would you go as an ambassador of the everyday astronaut representing us? Not at all. Not for a long time. I get asked this question quite a bit of whether or not I don't want to go to Mars. Mars would suck. Like, I like it here. I like being able to go and get pizza or tacos and swim and go for runs without having to put on a spacesuit. Like, I like being outside and having a car and having friends and family and going out to dinner and watching my brother-in-law compete on American Ninja Warrior. which he just did. His second episode aired last night. If you happen to be in the U.S. and have access to that, watch the Seattle-Tacoma City Finals, and you'll definitely spot me. You'll spot me on that episode, which is just hilarious. That was so fun to go and cheer him on. I like that stuff. I don't want to go camp somewhere where it's negative degrees at all times, where there's no, like, that is for explorers. I am by nature just not that kind of person. I don't have enough of that. I do have a little bit of that in me. But like, I struggle to go out and go camping, like, let alone camping, hundreds of millions of miles away, and for 2 years, and very high risk. I'll wait until it's like super, super safe, super figured out. It's not a big deal. They have ships that just regularly go back and forth every blah, blah, blah. So you hop on it, you hang out, you party, you meet all these people, you hang out on Mars. There's like attractions and stuff. And yeah, I'll do that. But no, otherwise, no. So I'll wait until then. Looks like Elon just tweeted that they're still hoping to catch the fairing in a few minutes. That'd be sweet. That's awesome. Sorry, I'm just reacting to stuff here in Discord. That's super cool. All right, Marius asks, can SpaceX live stream when going to the moon? Absolutely. Yep. I think that's a big part of the plan too, is bringing, especially when they do the Dear Moon stuff, bringing that back down to Earth and sharing those experiences of the people that will be on board. That's the whole point of Dear Moon. It's literally, that type of thing will make me cry just thinking about it, because it's such a beautiful idea that the Apollo era was so incredible, but is so focused on the mission and the mission success and these, in a sense, hardened, military test pilots that were the best at doing those missions. But it was kind of hidden behind a layer. Like, there wasn't that authenticity of today's modern live streaming and Instagram and just casual conversations and having a direct 4K live feed, all this stuff. Yes, that will actually absolutely be a very big part of not only SpaceX, but like NASA's Artemis program and our generation returning to the moon. A big part of that will be bringing that back down to all of us, and we'll be able to experience it in a way that we hadn't. The support for going to the moon fell off almost immediately after Apollo 11. And I think a lot of it was kind of like, okay, cool, neat, we did something neat. But if we actually are bringing people along with us and really truly sharing that experience, I think it'll be really hard to start arguing that this is dumb. Like, I think people will have a whole new respect, and it'll really help with the perspective of what happens when our species leaves Earth and goes, and even standing on our neighbor and looking back at every human in the world ever. It's just really, I think that'll be a lot more profound this time around. And especially if it's more sustainable and more inspirational in that sense. I think it'll be different this time. Leah, SpaceX Fleet Updates is covering the fairing recovery on Twitter. That's awesome. And Our Ludicrous Future is the best. Podcast is the best. Thank you so much, Leah. That's awesome. I really hope that they get the fairing caught. Michael Smith wants to know, what do they do with the second stage? So the second stage on missions like this, they typically will kick it out into what's called a graveyard orbit. And that's an orbit where you're way far outside of range of anything that's useful. There's tons of, space is huge, especially when you're out at geostationary orbit. There's so much space. And yes, you might see this like blips where you see little dots of like, oh, look at all the debris, look at all the satellites. There's like hundreds of kilometers between that and anything else. And it's not much different than just chunks of asteroids flying around. I mean, yes, we have kind of littered space in a sense, but those will go into a graveyard mission. If they're a low Earth orbit mission, they deorbit the second stage and let it burn up on reentry. But for geostationary orbits, they kick them out into a graveyard orbit. Ian Chase, Tim, late to the game. Quick question. Why did CRS-18 take 48 hours to get to the ISS, but Soyuz took a little over 3 after launch? Ian, so the Soyuz has a quick, it's kind of like, it was a newer thing. It was a quick to ISS rendezvous. And a lot of that is just something that they developed. And the Dragon capsule is going to take longer until they do and feel comfortable doing a quick rendezvous. Anytime, so cargo going to the ISS always has to take like a longer, high orbit, and then they like slowly close it in, and just each step makes sure that it's as safe as possible for the crew on board the ISS and for the ISS itself. But this is just a little different for now, but they'll get to it eventually. So Psycho Spence asks if there's a link for the rockets behind me. Yeah, buzzspacemodels.com. I don't know if Ollie's making that many anymore or if he's keeping up with them because he got slammed like a year and a half ago. And yeah, I don't know where he's at with that. But yeah, Buzz Space Models. I definitely plan to have some in my web store in the near future. So yeah. Let's see. That's also on my website. If you can't find it and you're like, what did Tim say? Just go to everydayastronaut.com, click on partners, and you'll see like links to like where I get my glasses and what computer I use and all that stuff. Yeah. Let's see. Sysman 2000 asks, do spend rockets sink? Why don't they just send some training military plants to shoot them, to sink them, to give pilots some real targets? I see. Do spent rockets sink? They typically burn up on reentry to the point where by the time it hits the ground, it's in pieces already. There's been a few that were supposed to land or landing attempts that went wrong where they actually did have to go and self-destruct them. Yeah. I don't know if they use the military live targets to work on or not, but I think the easier thing to do would probably just be to detonate it. I'm not entirely sure, but the ones like this mission, it will absolutely have broken up. Let's see. Stand for Liberty. In space, how do you measure your speed? Would it be relative to your starting point? So that's a good question. I believe it's relative to Earth relative velocity, but that changes. I think it's mostly based on your orbital velocity around the thing you're orbiting is typically your speed. So if you're orbiting the sun, you go by that velocity. If you're orbiting Earth, you go by that. If you're orbiting the moon, you change to that. So it's just kind of your frame of reference. Yeah. And Chris Harris, and I'll make sure I confirm that at some point, Stand for Liberty. Chris Harris, another $2 towards forcing Tim down to Mars. No, stop. No. Leo the Human, have a drink of your choice in Boca Chica. And thanks for the true streams today. Your dedication to answering the same questions every day impresses me greatly. Leo, thank you very much. But this is nothing compared. If I were a teacher, like I wanted to be a teacher growing up. I wanted to be an art teacher and then like an industrial arts teacher. And I did very poorly in school, which is still like a sore subject because I really wish that I had been able to do better. And I really want people to do well in school. I think we just need awesome teachers out there. And I would have loved to be a teacher. But the teachers have patience of saints because think about it, especially if you're like in middle school or high school, you have to do the same curriculum and the same course like every day. And you're explaining the same thing like 10 times. Those people have patience and you have to deal with teenagers and kids. Those people have insane amounts of patience. So my ability to answer the same questions every day is nothing compared to teachers. So thank you, teachers, for your awesome work. They've molded my life for sure. I know I'm not formally a teacher, but I like to think that I'm at least helping out in that way because I just love it. I love it. I love being able to help explain things that were, especially when something clicks in here and I'm like, oh, that's how that works. Like the first thing I want to do is explain it to someone and be like, isn't that cool? You know, and sometimes it's hard to get people to appreciate the nerdy things that might have made you excited, but that's kind of part of the excitement too. So, Elon tweeted. What did Elon tweet? Elon tweeted? No way. Let's see here. What's he saying? He just said hoping to catch a fairing in a few. That was a minute ago. That was 8 minutes ago. Nothing since then. Okay. And Ian Chase. Oh, and thank you, Leo, by the way. Leo the Human. That's very, very nice of you. And Ian also wanted to say, Tim, got your grandson the F1 schematic hoodie the other day, and took him to the OKC Science and Space Museum, and they had a real F1 engine. Awesome. He loves me. Well, thank you, Ian. That's so cool. You guys, that is so awesome. Thank you guys very much. And Ian, that is great to hear. Yeah, that means a lot. I'm going to get out of here now, though, guys, before I get stuck here, because I'm going to start working on a video about Rocket Lab's reusability now. So that's fun and exciting. I'm going to try to crank that out. It's Tuesday. I'm going to try to have it out by Thursday so I can go to Texas on Friday for you guys. So wish me luck. Fingers crossed. Thank you again for all of you for hanging out with me. Again, hop into the web store, everydayastronaut.com/shop. Get some stuff while it's in here because it might not be there next time you go back. Or if you want to help me, especially like on my trips down to Texas and Florida and all these other trips. They are not free. So everydayastronaut.com or patreon.com/everydayastronaut if you want to help support what I do. That really, really, really makes everything I do possible. I can't tell you enough how much that actually makes a huge difference. That's the reason I'm able to do everything and upgrade gear and get better cameras and get better live streaming quality and do all the things that matter when trying to communicate the awesomeness of spaceflight. So thank you guys so much for everything. And Discord, get ready. I'm probably going to go ahead and do dinner, and then I'm going to pop right back into scripting mode and research mode. So get ready, Discord. We are ready. So all right, that's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people. Bye, everyone.